We're joined in the box now by the CEO of the Geelong Cats, Steve Hocking. Steve, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for having me.
K-pop fan?
I drove through Macca's the other day and I thought, what is this? Yeah.
Oh, look, it is very popular.
Apparently
so the kids tell me. A little bit wet today, which is unfortunate, but how much do you look forward to this fixture?
Oh, it's outstanding. I think it's a great way to wrap up the Easter holiday period, isn't it? So, yeah, fabulous to be here. Hopefully a full stadium. I think the AFL was talking about 80,000 plus, so I found it hard to get a couple of tickets late yesterday. So that's a good sign.
Nice to see that it wasn't a fully ticketed game either, Steve, which has been a bit of a misread, hasn't it, from some clubs?
Hawks have done a really good job on that. Yeah, it's obviously their home fixture, and they've been excellent. They've stayed close to it and haven't wanted to go down that path, and I think that's really good.
How, if you were a betting person, which I'm not, how much would I back Zak Butters running out this time next year for Geelong?
Well, I'm not a betting man either, but and we don't often talk about our list management, but yeah, happy to acknowledge. I think we're probably one of a host of clubs that would have some interest in a player of that level, as you would across a number of different players that may be available.
So St Kilda have been criticised in some circles, in fact by the reigning premiership captain, for inflating the market. You're famously a club who has kept wages down. Yeah. I mean, we know guys like Dangerfield and Selwood played for a lot less than they could have elsewhere. Have your leadership group come to you? Have you had that discussion yet about what you would be prepared to pay someone who is being talked about as a $2 million player?
You're talking all the time, Caroline. I think it's really important to do that. I'm fortunate enough to have been around when the likes of Neil Baum and Brian Cook were part of it. Neil used to sit down with the likes of Tom Harley and Cameron Ling and Corey Enright, often, and that baton's been passed on. So we don't sort of just go, okay, someone may be available to us, let's now start talking about that person. You're talking all the time. But
would you be comfortable for him to come in at a significantly higher wage than anyone else?
I think you started the question off, led with the fact that we've been notoriously discerning as far as our what our spend is, and we're still that football club. But having said that, the market has changed, and so we need to recognise that as well. But yeah, at the appropriate time, I think for us, we look after the people that we've got on our list currently, and make sure that we do that. I think there's been some commentary around potentially Bailey getting an uplift. That's an example of what we do. He's sort of front and centre of it, but there's other players that have gained uplifts, over the last couple of years.
Did he come to you, Bailey, or did you go to him?
No, we just mutually, talking to his management group. As I say, that's what you do. I mean, he had a fabulous year last year, so we acknowledge that. Yeah.
Just on the topic of Bailey Smith, I'm just curious in terms of how you sort of see a bit of a pattern of behaviour with regards to the incidents involving him. And obviously, there's the Mad Monday one concerning Cara, which I know, she's not bringing up. I am. There's also the photographer. There's flipping the bird. There's recent loss of licence. So how do you view that in terms of a pattern of behaviour? And is it something that you are involved in managing if you think it needs to be managed?
Look, as the CEO, you're absolutely involved at different stages of it. I mean, my role is to set an environment up where people can be the best they can be. I think that, for us, more importantly, it's about the entire group, not just about Bailey. If it does form a pattern of behaviour over an extended period of time, of course you're going to lean into those conversations because you have to. What we're seeing this year, off the back of last year, we're seeing some improvement. It's important for him to recognise that himself. I think he's really close to Andrew Mackie. There's a lot of care that goes on there. He came off an ACL last year, and I think for any player returning to the competition, that was a pretty difficult period. And probably, if I look back on it, I'm not sure that we necessarily processed that as deeply as what we needed to, as to the anxiousness that sat around that. Yeah.
Hey, Hock, they're talking about changes to the draft and the academies and father and sons. What are your views on that? And can they bring it in this year, or do you need to give clubs 2 or 3 years warning? Because clearly there's pre-planning with all of these things, points and bidding and whatnot. What's your view on all of that?
It's just go now.
Go now, do it.
Yeah, just do it. I think.
What's the delay, Steve?
Look, I think they're just working through a range of things, Caroline. I think, Richo, we've all had enough time to realise that this is going to happen at some point in time. So
clubs would have been planning that this was going to happen.
Look, we've all been in deeper conversations than what you necessarily have access to. So I just think that where there's fairness, and my personal view is I think we need to be considering that not only as far as the draft goes, but also the fixture. There's just some things to potentially reset over the next sort of 18 months, 2 years. I think Greg Swan has started that. I think he's doing a fabulous job. Tom Harley will lean into that as well. I think they're going to be excellent support and also great leaders for the game. And I think a lot of this will actually get sorted.
Right.
But fairness is really, really important. I think the fans in the stands are asking for it. And so if they are, we need to make sure that we're leaning into it. Yeah.
Your captain introduced this segment, but he's obviously not playing. And in doubt for gather round as well.
Yeah, he's certainly training well. So hopefully there's some availability for gather round. But I've actually been out of the program this week. I went to Canberra for the last week talking to politicians, as many people are in that queue.
What are you schmoozing them about?
Just facilities and look,
What do you reckon?
Laura, we've been doing it about 18 years now. We run Fed Cats up there. It's a function for all federal politicians that are Cats supporters, and I've since seen that
Smart.
The Tigers do it now. They call theirs, I think, Tigers on the Hill.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And that's just recent years, and also the Swans have now tipped into it as well. And largely it's just making sure that you've got the connection.
You're going to put a roof on down there?
No, we're definitely not doing that. We'll leave that to Benny Gale.
Steve, Canberra obviously can't run the fixture, and you've got, 3 games in 11 days?
Yes, yeah.
And we've had teams come in after 17, 18-day breaks. The supporters are clearly confused about the fixture and confused about what opening round means. I love the initiative, but it hasn't worked. And I heard your coach say it's not coming back next year. He's obviously got the word from somewhere. Maybe he's got it from you.
No, definitely not from me. I think he's probably talking to the right people. But look, my understanding is all that's on the table to be considered. What we would love to see is football just played right across every state. I think that would be a fabulous way to open the season up, and then none of the football followers miss out on it. It's started up in the northern states. We don't have to ignore what's been done there. I think it works really, really well, and all the evidence, all of the data points to that. But let's make sure that we're playing elsewhere as well.
Hock, obviously, big issue at the moment in terms of concussion and some of the issues we've seen in terms of high marks. And interested to get your view on where the game's heading in that aspect, and along with the contact training, just in terms of that argument that's had, whether there's too much or not enough at club level at the moment. Yeah,
look, probably the thing I'd say is, and I go back to my time at the AFL, but also my experience at Geelong. We're not fans on teammates hurting teammates at training, so we've been quite advanced in that space. Chris has led a lot of this. I think players are just amazing now. The athlete now understands, and you're recently retired. You might relate to this. I think they're able to compartmentalise training aspects, and when you need to switch into that full play and full contact, I think they do that exceptionally well. I think what we've left behind is apparently you've got to be really robust and ruthless in training, so it actually transfers. I don't see that as much. I think players are actually able to switch gears and treat their own players within training in a respectful way. And the reality is you don't want anyone getting hurt at training, do you? So I actually think
You're one of the bottom 4 clubs, I think. There are 4 clubs that were warned by the AFL to tone it down a bit. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, yes. Only what I've read. I don't know that's
but
factual.
Where you stand is...
No, I wasn't aware of that. But I can say this: I'm not surprised to hear that because our high performance team and so forth. Clubs do a lot of match sim. Again, you'd be aware of this, but match sim is just touch. it is literally touch football. Do we do tackling drills and so forth? We don't do any of that. It's and I just think that's where it needs to go. And you do a lot of it within game, and you see how we play. It hasn't affected how our team plays.
Hey, Hock, we're talking about it yesterday, the high marks, because there were a few concussions. Jacob Wiedering last week, where he gets kneed accidentally in the head, and there was a few articles written about it. And going down the line of, the AFL has issues there, clearly. Do you think players, will it get to a point where you actually have to sign some sort of waiver saying that you understand you can be concussed on a field?
No, I don't.
Do you think we won't get there?
No, I don't think it'll get there. I think the care that goes on now is exceptional. I really maybe I'm looking through.
We can't do much more though.
No,
can
we can't. I might be wearing rose-coloured glasses. I think footy has reached an incredible standard. I just think we just keep educating. That's what it comes down to. Does anyone seriously want to hurt anyone? I think that's well gone. That was. I'm so happy to see where the game's got to. I think it's fabulous. Yeah, I think there's genuine care that goes on now, and it needs to continue that way, and make sure that we're also educating all of the competitions in underneath. Yeah.
We've seen one area I think there's enormous room for improvement is second-tier competitions.
Yeah.
And the VFL at the moment, we're just seeing players come in having played some VFL time into a senior game because of injuries, etc. The fixture is not in line at all with the AFL. The South Australian AFL clubs would love to be part of it. There's not enough money, apparently. And I think there's been a change at head office now. I think Laura Kane is not running the VFL. It's gone back into Greg Swan's area.
Yeah.
You would have struggled with... I mean, everyone seems to have struggled with it at head office.
Yeah, it's such...
How do you fix it?
Well, it's just such a big beast, Caroline. Like, it's, if you sort of... You've got to be really careful not to tinker, because it can really upset the ecosystem. And then if you do dive right into it, you've got to make sure that you've actually done a lot of work and understood the strategy and so forth. I actually think the game would be better. This is just a personal view. I actually think the game would be better having far more of that competition at a standard whereby those coaches are paid a certain amount of money. They become the future coaches of the AFL. The players are part-time in that system. I'd have a lot more vertical movement is what I would do. When I see players like, Sean Manor and, we've had Tom Stewart, there's actually players you can now just parachute into the game and they're good enough to play. And I think there's a lot more of them out there. And so setting it up in a way whereby potentially the lists are smaller, that's where I would go. I think the lists definitely should be smaller, because we warehouse so much talent. I would be sending that talent back down to this level, which would raise all of that standard, and then it would just cascade down accordingly. The game would save a lot of money, and you could actually set up structures whereby people have a genuine career path through to the AFL. But that's just some thought I've given to it from a former seat. I haven't thought about it recently, but you need to do a lot of work for that to be considered, yeah.
How long do you think you're going to have Nathan Buckley as a senior assistant coach?
Oh, who knows? Look, I think we'd love to have him longer than just the 12 months.
Is it correct you spoke with Brendan Gale?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Before you employed him as a senior assistant?
Yeah, just out of, being professional and polite about it. Not because he had the job at Tassie, it was just the right thing to do. So he wasn't blindsided by it. But
what's he brought to your program?
He's brought a lot to the program in terms of his professionalism. I think wherever you can land in a spot whereby it's good for both parties, that's a good place to be. I think that we're challenging, some of his thinking around football. He's so structured. We don't run a program like that. It's everybody knows that, and so that's been a bit of a challenge for him. And then there's also the balance of being in the media. Because of soft cap restrictions and so forth, we've had to work through it in a way whereby, we've got access to some really high-level talent, but at the same time, he's got bills and so forth to pay and family to raise. So we've worked it the way we have, and I think we'll see more of that moving forward, in the game. But our coaches, he's just formed a great part of that. The players relate to him really well. He gets on the tools, like he's been incredible as far as just his work ethic. Like that for me, it's been really super impressive. Yeah.
Hock, just before we let you go, can you give us an update on Tyson Stengel and how he's tracking?
Tracking really well, Laura. I think Chris was interviewed yesterday as far as Tyson goes and missed all of pre-season. And, there was personal issues and so forth to account for that. And as we do, you give your people a bit of space to work through it, and we've done that. So what's been important is getting him back into the program and getting a mini pre-season into him, and that's sort of where he's at currently. We're hopeful that we'll see him back playing at some level in the next couple of weeks, if not the next month. So, but he's certainly going very well.
Well, you've been very generous with your time, and we could pick your brain over issues for hours.
Sorry, Matthew.
We could sit here for a while, couldn't we?
I'd love the one on the second-tier comp, though. I think
Yeah.
a lot of these kids are too young, I reckon. They need to develop and have another pathway, right?
Yeah, well, I think the example is Joel Selwood. He was ready to play, right?
Yeah.
So you're always going to have a really small percentage that are good enough. But even with Joel, we didn't play him every game in his first year. And he stared us down. He was staring Mark Thompson down at the time, just saying, no, I'm here to play. And we're like, no, it's about the entire year. So you'll have those that you need to consider. But, young athletes, young men particularly, and we just, spoke about it earlier when Laura raised it, they just develop at different stages. And, James Podsadley played for us at 28 years of age, ended up being a premiership player. Now, he didn't come in a natural pathway. He came in through our VFL. We made him captain of our VFL, and he was out here running all the fitness program as one of the key people to warm them up for games. And then we're watching him play at training against Scarlett and so forth. And Mark Thompson's going, this guy's actually good enough to be playing AFL. And I just think that there's so many. Our game needs to remain open.
But your point about you lose them probably because they need to earn a living as well,
they do.
Don't they?
Yeah. They go to the country areas.
Yeah.
They get paid an absolute fortune. I think for a competition at that level, if you can keep players close to the flame that they want to actually step into, which is AFL, and they get parachuted in. Hawks have just done that, haven't they, with a young fellow as well? Yeah. There is so many of those examples. So I think more player movement, vertical movement. Let's just continue to find ways to open it up. That's what I would do. Yeah. And I think it keeps everybody engaged. The game's better for it. If I'm sitting in the stand, I want to follow the underdog. I want to know that young guy has gone off to South Australia or played somewhere else and actually been given an opportunity in a club to play at this level, and we all get really excited. It's an emotional game. That's what we need.
You say it's a personal view, but have you made this point to head office?
Oh, yeah. I was there for 4 years, so
I understand.
I made it pretty strongly then.
I remember hearing about it when I was a player that I was keen on this idea. So
yeah, and then I just think it is about a theatre show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're showing up to this level. When you get to that level, it's much more about development. But anyway,
it's good chat.
Yeah, we'll wax lyrical for a while.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you for your time and good
Thank
luck
you all.
today.
Thank you.